Hello, and welcome to Tallinna Sadam Investor Conference webinar about financial results in the third quarter and 9 months of 2018. Today we are hosted by the Chairman of the Management Board, Valdo Kalm, and Chief Financial Officer, Marko Raid. If you would like to use the opportunity to ask questions from Valdo and Marko, use the question box on the right side of the screen to send in questions. All questions will be answered after the presentation. Valdo and Marko, you may start the presentation.
Good morning, everybody. And let's then start with highlights from Q3. And I would like to start with some messages on our main trends. We have seen quite a stable number of passengers in Q3. That means a small increase still. Then we got strong growth from liquid bulks, and that's due to some special projects. And due to that, we also managed to grow in revenues and EBITDA. And there are three main reasons. Again, liquid bulk. Then fifth ferry, additional ferry for summertime. And also we had a contract for Putnik in Canada, Baffinland. It was successful in Q3 and continued in Q4. And therefore, we still standing behind our dividend policy. We are a little bit ahead from our targets in 9 months. Therefore, we are able to pay dividends as we promised. Also, we would like to remark the next slide highlights for Q3 that we sold coal terminal equipment. And we signed the agreement to remove this equipment in Q1 next year. Cruise season made another record in passenger numbers and then ship calls. The business area doing very well and supported our growth in revenues and EBITDA. Also, we got Baltic IPO award, and then we would like to mention that we got CEF or Euro-supported funding for the Twin Port 3. That's the joint project together with Port of Helsinki. Next slide about the trends in our 4 segments. As we mentioned, then we had a growth in passenger numbers in Q3. Even Q3 was good for Tallinn-Helsinki route with small growth. On cargo, again, the growth mainly came from liquid bulk, but also we got growth from Ro-Ro and containers in Q3. On ferry business, I already mentioned that we had 5th ferry for summer season in Saaremaa route, and then under the other segments, that's the Putnik additional revenue what we got from Canada. Next slide shows more precisely cargo growth, and that was quite nice in Q3 due to mainly for the liquid bulk, and in 9 months it's on a level plus 9%, also supported heavily mainly from liquid, but also from Ro-Ro and containers. Next slide describes the number of passengers. On Q3, plus 2%, supported quite heavily from cruise, and on 9 months it's plus 1%. Actually, there we have growth in all lines if you take 9 months. Now I would like to give the floor to Marko. Next slide about our financials.
Thank you, Valdo. As Valdo already said, as the fundamental figures for Q3 were very good. This is also illustrated in good 19% growth in revenues, which has also driven the growth for 9 months by 7.3%. And due to the growth in revenues, also we have substantially increased our EBITDA levels and also the operating profit. So the EBITDA growth has been almost 40% in the third quarter and 11% on the 9-month figures. There was no income tax cost for the third quarter because that relates to the declaration of dividends, which was declared in the second quarter. So the profit for the period has also increased almost by 60%, and on 9 months we are also on a positive track. Still on the profit there's a little bit of decline, about 10 million, but that's largely due to the increase on the income tax, which is a little bit more than 14 million. On investments, we have had a quite a big decline because on the first quarter of 2017 we still had the last payments for the ferry investments. The new projects in the port business and mainly the reconstruction of LNG Terminal has been now started as of the half year. So we will see increase in investments, but the 9-month figure is quite much lower, more than 21 million less than it was in 2017. Due to the positive operating revenues, we have also quite good net cash flow. Cash from operating activities has decreased, but that's also due to the income tax on dividend, which this year was extraordinarily high. All the 2 other items, cash used in investing activities, have decreased, so free cash flow as a result has increased, and we also have a positive contribution from financing activities, all this contributing to net cash flow of 55 million. So that's why we see that we are on a very good track in order to keep our dividend promise as well. So at least 30 million euros of dividends to be paid out in 2019. That's very realistic and we are in a good track. On the right hand side you have a chart about our financial position. Due to the increase in cash balance, the balance sheet volume has a little bit increased, almost to 650 million euros, but that's due to the increase in current assets. On the liability side, we also have a small decrease on the debt levels due to repayment of amortizing loans and growth in equity. On the next slide, we have laid out our results on segment level, and as already described on the volumes, the passenger harbors result has been increasing less compared to others, but we have had a positive growth in the third quarter there as well, mainly coming from the cruise vessels, where we had a record season this year. But most of the contribution then is coming from the three other segments, starting from cargo harbors, where we had liquid volumes growth. This has driven the increase in revenues and also EBITDA. The biggest contributor has been the ferry segment due to the revenue growth from the fifth vessel, combined with decrease in costs, because in 2017 we still had quite a high cost of substitute vessels due to the delays of the new ferries, which did not continue into 2018. So we have less costs and more revenues. And the segment under other is basically icebreaker Putnik. Last year we did not have summertime job, so this year on the third quarter we have had 2.8 million of additional revenue, which to a large extent has also directly contributed to EBITDA. So the good results from third quarter have also positively impacted the levels for the 9 months, and most of the growth in 9 months is actually coming from the third quarter, and we can also see here that the passenger harbor segment is quite stable, cargo harbors as well, and most of the growth is taking place in ferry and from other, which is Putnik. And with that, we conclude our short presentation.
Thank you for the presentation. Now Valdo and Marco will proceed with the questions in the order they were received. I would like to remind you that you can send in questions using the question box on the right side of the screen.
All right, we got a couple of questions, and we would like to start with the first one, and that's a question about LNG terminal to Paldiski. Please explain the memorandum of understanding between Alexela and Tallinna Sadam to develop LNG terminal. What is the role of Tallinna Sadam, and how this development would be beneficial? Then I would like to answer that yes, we signed a memorandum of understanding, and it says basically if Alexela will invest and start the building of LNG terminal in eastern part of Paldiski, then we will provide a classical port service. That means that our role is very clear. We will invest to the jetty quay, what is around 8 to 10 million, and provide the port services operated by our harbor in Louna or South Harbor in Paldiski. That means that we don't need lot of land, and under this memorandum of understanding, we now have to decide on conditions. But there are one main condition in place already on this memorandum that says what is our demand on payback time, and Alexela is okay with that, but the other conditions is under discussion. And basically, to summarize that again, if Alexela will start with the project, then we are ready to invest for jetty quay and operate from our main harbor from Paldiski south.
Maybe to add on Valdo's comment that this LNG terminal is currently planned as a greenfield project, meaning that there is no harbor where it's going to develop. So it's going to be built there. So we'll take the next question. Please explain the purpose of coal terminal asset sale. Why was this equipment sold and not used by Port of Tallinn itself? And actually, yes, there's an answer here in itself in the question, were the assets really so specific that it was impossible to use them anymore? Yes, the assets are specific for loading coal, and unfortunately we don't see that Tallinn Port or the operators here would be receiving substantial volumes of coal in order to have a dedicated terminal. And as this equipment can only be used for coal, that's why it was sold, and we did not see any future use for that. And it was an open tender, so if someone at the Port of Tallinn would have seen value, any of the operators, they would have been able to participate in the tender and make their offer, but unfortunately no one did.
There is question about our Putnika. Is there any doubt that Putnika's charter may not be continued in 2019? And we can say that we have had a very nice contract for this year. We executed it very well. As I mentioned, it started in June and continued also in Q4. Putnika is back in Tallinn. in a very good condition, and we did excellent job. And there will be decision in the end of the year about the next year. But I would say it's
more likely.
More likely, exactly, that we will continue also next year, because a customer was very satisfied. And Putnik did a really great job to help some 100 vessels, plus some additional jobs what he did in Canada. Therefore, very likely, but not 100% sure. We will have telephone conference in the beginning of December. All right. Then next question. Please provide your view on liquid bulk volumes for Q4, and there we can say that we see continuous growth also in Q4, but I guess maybe it's not so high than in Q3.
And maybe to add on this, it's still quite volatile market. So it's short-term contracts, project-based volumes that are handled. So we don't have any long-term visibility in terms of what is going to happen, and situation can change depending on how the individual projects are going and what is happening in the markets. But so far we have been on the good side with liquid bulk. Then we'll take next question. Will there be any financial impact from the sale of coal terminal equipment? No, because the coal terminal equipment was actually, or came to us from the bankruptcy proceedings. So basically the revenue from the sale, we expect that is going to be paid into the bankruptcy, bankruptcy arrangers, or the people dealing with that. So the port will not keep the money. But what is important for us is to free up the historic coal terminal area of this equipment, so that the soybeans processing plant can start their investments there. And that's where the financial impact for the port will come, is from the startup of the soybean project, where we already from the second half of 2018 started to receive rental payments.
Then continue with the next question. Based on most recent results, what is your current outlook for passenger traffic for next year? Yes, Q3 was very good, and of course it's high season. Therefore, on next year's prognosis, we have certain visibility on cruising business, what shows hopefully continuous growth. On regular lines, it's difficult to say, because we see certain stabilization, especially on Tallinn-Helsinki route. Therefore, we would like to see more such a stable figures. Also, next question about the outlook for cargo for next year. Definitely, we would like to at least have small growth from this year, although again we had a nice growth on liquid bulk. As Marco also described, it's very project based, but still we see the potential on ro-ro, on containers. Therefore, our ambition is keep at least this year's level with small growth.
We currently don't see any more questions. This is the end of the webinar. Presentation will be available on Nasdaq Baltic YouTube channel on webinar playlist. Thank you, Marco and Valdo, for the presentation and for the insight. And thank you, participants, for joining.